Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, off the Motor City Madmouth, and we have a threesome tonight, and a very good threesome, I might say. Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion. Welcome back, Mr. Curti.
Thanks, Scott.
And, of course, Lou Landers, L Square. Welcome back, Lou.
Hey, guys. Good to be back. I know I missed last week due to my Toronto Maple Leafs actually winning that game and then, of course, blowing it like they always do. But happy to be back talking some baseball and got some good topics here tonight, don't we?
You sure do. I love having you on, Lou. I'll tell you what, every time I bring you on, it's almost like taking a show off here. So, well, but there's not much of a show to take off. We're going to follow the KISS rule, keep it simple, stupid tonight. And we have a lot of good topics to get to, and we're going to lead off with the Miami Marlins. They took on the Milwaukee Brewers over the weekend, where they commemorated the 25th anniversary of the World Series championship. And, you know, obviously the Brewers took 2 of 3 in that series. But the game I hit was the Sunday game when the Brewers won a 7-3 contest. And the only thing I want to make mention about that particular game is before the game, I had an opportunity to talk to one of the communications guys. His name is Daniel Kurish. And I was telling Daniel that I've appeared on some shows and so forth, talking about the Marlins. And I've always said that the Marlins pitching, to me, will carry this club here. And if the hitting ever does get on track, we will be dangerous. We really will. But the one thing Dan and I both agreed on and is this, okay, we talk about how good the Marlins pitching staff is, but when you add Sixto Sanchez and Max Meyer to that group of studs, Lou, this team is going to be unbelievable.
Don't forget Edward Cabrera, too.
Right, exactly.
Great young pitcher. They really, the Marlins, Scott, in my opinion, should be trading from that pitching depth, whether it be someone in the current rotation at the big league level or somebody who is in the minor leagues. They should be trading from that pitching depth to acquire some more offense, because it really is a shame that you're going to see that pitching staff go to waste. They're all going to get into their arbitration years and then free agent years before the Marlins have enough offense. And it'll take us back to a topic we talked about long ago. Reason why Derek Jeter left. They weren't willing to spend that money on bringing in that offense, right?
Oh, no question about that. And you know what, though? Having an opportunity, Lou, to see this team firsthand all the time, it is great to watch Pablo Lopez on the hill, Sandy Alcantara. And on Sunday, I saw Eliezer Hernandez. I don't know what it is. It's so interesting sometimes when you go to some of these games. But of the 4 games I've been there, Eliezer Hernandez has been there 3 of the 4 and hadn't been a very good result. So, but then again, all last year, I had an opportunity to see a lot of Pablo and Sandy Alcantara. And I was talking to Daniel about said, geez, oh, Pete, we have such a great pitching staff. I mean, again, I reiterated Sixto Sanchez, Max Meyer, that I will take our pitching staff over practically any pitching staff around MLB, and I have no problem with it. I think we can win with it, and we could go deep into the playoffs. All we need to do is create some offense. And Dan, you know what? He's a really super nice guy. So, yeah, he agreed with me. I mean, he knows what he sees 162 times a year. But, nevertheless, it just came up and we were talking about it. And, again, what can you say? Well, the Marlins, I believe the last I looked are 3 games under 500. So they're still in it. Of course, I think the Mets are going to run away.
They also play in a really good division, though. I mean, forget about Washington. They stink now. But the Braves, even with a slowish start, are a very good team, well-rounded overall. The Phillies, very good offense, up and down. That lineup is stacked. The rotation with Nola and Wheeler up top is very good. Gibson's not too shabby himself. And then, of course, the Mets, who are playing very good baseball, who have a very good manager. At some point, we'll get Jacob deGrom back. And, it's a tough division. In another division, the Marlins might be a 1 or a 2. Maybe not the NL West, but you put them in the AL Central or the NL Central, for instance, they're probably a first or second place team with a chance for one of those wild card spots.
All right, so while we're talking about the Marlins, I just want to point out, folks, that this show is actually being titled Running Up the Score. And as we get deeper into the show here, obviously you'll certainly understand why we named it exactly that. And in fact, we don't have to get deeper in the show. I'm going to turn it over to Lou Landers. And Lou, take over. Why don't you tell me exactly what we're looking to, how we're going to educate everybody? up the score.
This was a topic we actually were going to use a few weeks ago, but we just ran out of time, and we really wanted to give it its justice, its time. And it's kind of running up the score, the unwritten rules in Major League Baseball. Not just running up the score, but that's kind of the one that was in the forefront. There was a situation with the San Francisco Giants where they were accused of doing it, and Gabe Kapler, their manager, came under some heat. And I got to say, it's ridiculous to suggest that someone's running up the score. This isn't Little League. It's not T-ball. It's professional baseball. And the craziest part is that the Giants were up, I think it was 7 or 8 runs or something, and they kept tacking on and tacking on and tacking on, and Gabe Kapler gets all this flack for it. Earlier in that game, the Giants put up a 7 or 8 run inning. So to just not continue to score because they're running up the score, you could still lose a baseball game. These are still professional ball players. Are you supposed to just pack it in after 6 or 7 innings because you're up 10-2? We've seen it happen. Is it rare? Sure. But someone puts together a 6-7 run inning and they're right back in the game. Your job is to score as many runs as possible, whether it be off a bullpen, whether it be off a positional player. I don't care. And if guys want to swing for the fences, up 10 runs and swing on 3-0 with the bases loaded, up 8 runs, so be it. It's baseball. They get paid to play. And at the end of the day, at the end of the year, everyone looks at their statistics. And they're not pinpointing, 8 of those RBIs came in that game on May 2nd. They look and they see guy had 95 RBIs, and that's how he gets paid. So is the guy supposed to not try his best in the given situation because his team might be up by 8 runs? I mean, that's just the start of it for me. Rick, you haven't had anything to say yet, so
let
us know.
I totally agree with you. I think it's so ridiculous how people are so offended and get their feelings hurt. It reminds me of that Buster Posey rule where you can't run into the back catcher no more because Buster Posey tore, and that was not nice. And Buster Posey's a nice man, and that was mean to do that. And now you can't even run into the catcher no more. Which I'm thinking, it's a baseball game, it's a sport, it's contact, it happens. And now this stuff about now we're running up the score. Well, maybe the other team should get better pitching. How's that? Get some better pitching. So, and I have seen games where they have come back. I remember when the Phillies were down by like 10 runs in the 9th inning against the Dodgers, and they scored 12 runs in that 1 inning and won. So it does happen. And, my thing is, if you're up, man, you just keep piling it on as much as you can because these are great baseball players. Someone can just hit a grand slam, a home run. I mean, anything can happen. I've seen 2 grand slams in 1 inning. I mean, look at the Red Sox. They're down 3-0, bottom of the 9th. No way they're going to come back. Not only did they come back, they won the series against the Yankees.
The Astros hit 5 home runs in 1 inning tonight.
Yeah,
off a good pitcher in Nate Eovaldi. So runs can score very quickly. Things can spiral out of control, and even in like a 7-run game, all of a sudden it becomes a 2-run game. You go to your closer. Sometimes that closer comes in and he doesn't have it, especially when he's sitting there thinking, "Oh, it's the 9th inning and we're up 7 runs. I'm not getting into the game." And then all of a sudden his team's up 2 runs. He has to come in. It's a completely different mindset, and the game can get out of hand super, super quickly. So if you're up 10 runs, make it 15. Don't take your foot off the pedal.
It's what we're appeasing all the people who stink. I mean, get some better pitching, get a better bullpen. Why are you mad at Gabe Kapler? He's just doing his job. Get the better pitching. That's all I have to say. I mean, look at the Pirates. What was it like when they won 21-1 against the when the Cubs beat the Pirates like 21-1 and all that? People are like, "Oh my God, look at that. That's not right." Well, the Pirates stink. Get some better pitching.
Let me mention a couple of other things when we talk about running up the score. First of all, I'll never forget during the pandemic season when you only had 7-inning games and the scores were lopsided. And I was working with the Marlins. That was my first year working with the ball club. And let's face the reality, you had pitchers up there that weren't supposed to be there in the first place. So therefore, but you needed to have a lot more pitchers. And there were a lot of lopsided games during that pandemic shortened more than we'll ever imagine. But Don Mattingly said we just have to bite the bullet and hope it isn't too bad. It doesn't carry over for 2 or 3 games and they don't wear out our pitching staff. So it's a matter of self-preservation at that point. Now, I also want to point out something about running up the score that even though I know it's not related to baseball, okay, I don't have a problem running up the score in college football when you're trying to get style points to get into the college football playoff. I know that's a different animal there altogether, but there are times to do it. The only time I ever have a problem with a statistic being something that shouldn't be is when you're bunting with a no-hitter. Okay, then I've got a problem with it. Okay, then there's that ethical line that you draw. But let's face it, in baseball, it's easy to have slumps. So obviously, I understand where you're coming from, Lou. Okay, that you want to get those numbers too, because don't think that there aren't incentive clauses attached to those contracts.
Well, also, Scott, Rick, some of the players that are hitting and doing that are guys who might be trying to stay on the 26-man roster. They're not all guys that have secure jobs. So them coming up, hitting, getting a big hit, whether it's off a reliever, a high caliber reliever, a position player, whatever it might be, that ends up going in their favor if they do something well. So that's something that is just kind of it shouldn't be an unwritten rule. The bunting thing that you brought up, Scott, absolutely should be. Now, I don't have an issue with it.
Don't do that.
Now, if there's a no-hitter in the 5th or the 6th inning and you're bunting, I'm not super against it because the game, you're still trying to win a game. You're trying to get something going. In the 8th or the 9th inning, I have a bit of an issue with it. But again, what if it's a 1-0 game? And you're trying to get something going.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you can't blame a guy for trying to bunt in the 9th inning of a no-hitter if they're down by a run. They're not getting it. They're trying to get something going. But
look what happened to the Reds. They lost a no-hitter. They pitched a no-hitter and lost the game still.
Yeah, but again, Lou, everything you're talking about, okay, is situational. Okay, and I'm with you all the way. If you're going to bunt and it's a 1-0 game, no-hitter, forget it. But if you're going to bunt later on, when the game is in doubt or whatever. And that's the one thing that's so great about baseball is it's all situational, strategic. It's a chess game compared to any other sport. We know in hockey, it's very physical. Football the same way. Basketball, more athletes, where we all know the mental toll that baseball takes. So let's face the reality. Baseball is so demanding that Michael Jordan, didn't make it to the major leagues. He only got as high as AA, and a lot of guys
get only got there because he was Michael Jordan.
Exactly.
Let's face reality.
And Jerry Reinsdorf owned the White Sox.
Yeah, but the point is when you talk about the mental nature of the game and what the toll that it takes on you, it's another story. But again, situational is the key word. 1-0, bunt your way on, no problem. Forget the unwritten rule. Get a base. That's the rule. And obviously, scoring as many runs. I don't think you ever take your foot off the gas at all. I really, really don't because.
It's so contradictory and so hypocritical because people give people so much flack about the tacking on the runs. What about the teams that go up by a bunch of runs and then start pulling all their players and then a potential comeback? And then that one game that makes no difference to the team that may have pulled their players could totally affect the standings down the line, a game that someone might come back and win because the other team pulls their players and then a team ends up losing out in the playoffs by a game. There's so many things. It has to be a two-way street, but people only want to focus on the particulars when it suits their narrative as opposed to actually looking at the big picture and the whole, both sides of the coin, I guess.
Well, good point. That's why we could sit here and dissect baseball, Lou and Rick, all day long about this and that, him, wow, and that's why everybody loves the game of baseball the way that they do. I mean, because it's a constant conversation is what it is. It's second guessing, whether it's manager, coaches, hitters. I know you guys mentioned Albert Pujols, right? Getting in the game, what did he give? A couple of home runs?
Yes, Cy Young Award. He's going to win the Cy Young this year.
Right, I know.
36 ERA.
Were they not were the Giants not supposed to try to hit Pujols because it's a position player? They were trying to come back. Are the Cardinals be accused of trying to throw the game potentially because they let the Giants crawl back a little bit by using Pujols? I mean, the Cardinals did something smart by not using a bullpen arm. They gave Pujols a chance, which is cool. And the Giants, I mean, they're supposed to try and come back. They're supposed to take advantage of a position player
He
being
got
in
lit
there.
up.
Well, what did he throw? A waffling duck that went 54 miles an hour? Is that what it was? Called
Yep.
a wiffle ball?
He's got a
Getting up?
36.00 ERA. And he
Right. Well,
actually made history. Him and Babe Ruth hold the record for most home runs by a pitcher. Well, they have over 600 home runs.
yeah.
There you go.
Weird stat of the day right there.
Yeah, well, the bottom line is, I guess when I heard some of the sound that he ended up saying, you know what, I've hit so many home runs off of other people. Somebody hit a couple off me. At least Albert's got a sense of humor about it.
He was trending all over Twitter, and people loved it.
Yeah, but then let's talk about Albert Pujols, Lou and Rick for a moment. I think wasn't it in Detroit that he had that situation where he's supposed to get the baseball back and didn't even want it. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? Was it the RBI or?
I don't recall actually.
Well, it doesn't matter. But he didn't care. I mean,
he's a great guy.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He downplays everything. The guy's won World Series. Has a Hall of Fame career. He's done everything clean. So he gives up 2 stupid home runs, and he's did a whole lot more than that. And at least the thing that's fitting about Albert Pujols is he's wearing a Cardinals uniform.
I'm glad.
That's really the thing that I think is important. So
he never should have left.
Yeah. So meanwhile, we'll go from
chase the money. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about, Scott, was Hunter Green and the Reds and the no-hitter, and Rick brought it up. So we should just move over to that. Before we get off of the kind of subject completely. Hunter Green, certainly a young, exciting player, throws serious gas, and certainly was on the brink of potential history. I think it was 7 no-hit innings. He's had about 115 pitches. He just walked a few guys. He gets pulled. So there's 2 sides to it. First, he gets pulled. How do we feel about that? And then the second part is, of course, that the Reds still got the no-hitter and lost the game. That's the second part of it. But let's hit the first part with just Hunter Green in general. Scott, do you think it was the right decision for Hunter Green to be pulled in that situation? 115, 120 pitches and just walked 2 batters in the 8th inning? Or do you think he should have been given a chance to go until he gave up that hit?
Oh, well, you just said it for me. Thanks, Lou. I'd say he should have gone until he gave up the hit. I'm always going to be that way anyhow. Let's face the reality. This is the era of baseball I grew up. The man should stay in there until he gives up a hit, pull him, no big deal. So I will always, I know that everybody likes to pull these guys.
Now, keep in mind, it's situational. I'll throw this at you. The score was 0-0.
Doesn't matter. I'm not changing my position. I still think he should have gone until he gave up the hit. And that's just what I have to say.
All right, Rick.
Well, we're talking about unwritten rules. One of my unwritten rules, you never, ever, ever take a pitcher out when he's picking a no-hitter, especially like in the 8th or 9th inning. You just don't do that. We saw that with Dave Roberts 2 or 3 times. It's now happening more and more, and I blame analytics for all this garbage that's happening. And you keep him in there, and he gives up a hit, then you take him out. But you let the guy in there, let him battle it through. It gives him confidence, and he gets out of it. Man, guy's pitching a gem. He's pitching fantastic. It's not his fault that his team stinks. And when I say the Reds stink, they historically stink. And so you keep him in there till his arm falls off. And I never, ever, ever. That's one of those unwritten rules that you never take a guy out of a no-hitter like in the 8th or 9th inning.
Well, you
guys make good points. But Scott,
yeah,
sure, go
that's
ahead.
okay. I'm just going to reiterate what Rick said. I'm with you 100%, Rick. I think the guy stays until he gives up a hit, take him out, boom, end of story. All right, we'll go ahead.
So both of you guys bring up good points. And a lot of times I would tend to agree, but for the sake of argument, play devil's advocate, sake of the show, we're talking about a young, top heralded prospect in this organization, a guy that had thrown close to 120 pitches, a guy that throws in the high 90s consistently. Is it really worth him going any longer in that game? He wasn't going to make it 9 innings. It wasn't going to happen. He'd only gone through 7, and he'd thrown 120 or so pitches, and he wasn't throwing strikes. They weren't going to let him throw 145 or 150 pitches. It would have been damaging to him. It would be damaging to any pitcher, probably, especially one that's that young, that hasn't thrown that many pitches in the game, that throws at such a high velocity. So that's the first thing. I understand they're protecting their assets. one of the few good assets they have left there in Cincinnati. Secondly, I was watching that game, and it almost appeared that he was so afraid to give up that hit that he was nibbling so much, and that was leading to the free passes he was giving up to start that 8th inning. And if it was a more of a veteran pitcher who knew just attack the zone, trust your stuff, continue to do what you've been doing all game, I would be, you know what, take it out by out. But he just was not. He was pressing too much. He was trying to be too perfect, and that just comes from inexperience. And it could have led to a disastrous inning. Also, again, they weren't up 5-0. It was 0-0. You're still trying to win the game. He walked two guys, set them up to potentially lose the game. So you also have to manage. The manager's not managing for Hunter Green. He's managing to keep his job in the future. So you have to consider all those things. And when you do, I understand why they did it.
Well, the bottom line is I understand what it takes for a pitcher to nibble. He's trying to be too fine with his pitches, and he's aiming instead of throwing and all of the little things that go with it. But again, your point was, and your question was, do I think he should have stayed in? I was going to go with what Rick said. I say he should have. I understand.
Yep.
I don't know. Is the Cincinnati manager really managing his job? Who the heck's going to want that job anyway?
Yeah, he'll be fired at the end of the season anyway, so what difference?
Well, all right, so is he really we'll deal with that later in the season. Is he managing for his job right now, or is he sparing anybody that has to take it next year? You know, I understand protecting young pitchers. We've talked on previous shows that one guy that could never manage in this day and age would be Billy Martin because he'd burn them out anyhow. But my point is, and I know how you have to address these kids, and they're paid a lot more money than they ever have been as well, and you have to protect your assets. And I love what you said, Lou. Okay, you better protect the few assets that you have if you're the Cincinnati Reds, okay? These guys aren't coming up from Daytona with the Daytona Tortugas, low class. I got to give my people a plug down over at Jackie Robinson Ballpark. You know, I was there a couple of times, or wherever they're at, or the Pensacola or whatever. Who cares? It doesn't matter. They're not coming up from Daytona up 75. I understand you got to protect these young kids. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go back to what you said, and that's this situation. Don't take a guy out with no hitter until he's given it up. But unfortunately, and I think that every combined no hitter should be an asterisk next to it. I really believe that a no hitter is a no hitter by one person. That's it. Okay. Anything, and I'm sure we could devote an entire show, Lou and Rick, on that subject, and I'm sure Lou will be thinking about doing it one day. With a combined no-hitter should be an asterisk. I don't know. Lou's capable of anything. Hey, listen, you know what? I just followed this guy's lead. I don't know. Am I really doing that tonight, or am I getting a little bit more than I normally do, since there's just a couple of us anyways? But,
yeah, I think so. Well, that's the beautiful part of it. So right. To the second part of this, the Reds, they got the no-hitter, if you want to call it a no-hitter. Scott, based on your point, and I don't disagree. It's a very different thing to have whether it's 2, 3, or 6 guys combined for the no-hitter. They do get the no-hitter, so good for them. Might be the lone bright spot of their entire season. But they lost the game.
Yeah.
And what that comes down to for me is what happened this offseason. Basically deciding we're going to trade everybody, we're going to cut tons of salary, and we don't really care about our fans. We don't really care about the integrity of the game. We're just going to absolutely tank and be terrible. And that's where this comes in, because a team that didn't do that would have found a way to scratch across a run or two and win that game with that no-hitter. You can bet on it. And I think it's so bad for baseball to have teams this terrible. I mean, you look at the lineup that they've trotted out at times. I know Votto's hurt right now, but those guys that are playing in their major league lineup wouldn't even be playing and starting in a number of teams' AAA lineups.
Right.
It's really a disgrace. It's really a disgrace to the game and the integrity, the competitive integrity. I mean, I know the Orioles haven't been good for a while, but they still trot out major league caliber players. I know the Pirates aren't good, but they're still trotting out major league caliber players. They decided to keep Brian Reynolds when they could have gone a huge haul for him. There's teams out there, even Oakland. Oakland, I know what they did. They traded everybody. They're still playing competitive baseball, though. They're still going to finish in last place, but they're not. It's not like you can go into Oakland and you're going to beat up on them every single time. They'll still scratch out wins. They have some scrappy ball players. they still have some solid pitchers or some younger guys that are getting a chance. The Reds traded away pieces, got pieces back. Those pieces either aren't playing or they stink. At least the A's, when they did it, they got pieces back. They're playing, and it just shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be. It goes back to our conversation before. I understand you want the cap, and that's fine, but you really need to have that basement. Teams should be spending at least 50, 60 million on their payrolls. And if they're not, then they should either move or get a new owner.
Oh, no question about it. It's funny how you bring those comments up, Lou. Of all nights where they have the NBA draft lottery, isn't baseball implementing a situation where they have a little lottery? I haven't heard about it, so I'm asking you a question without knowing the answer. Maybe you would know.
I believe that they are. I believe it's something about the bottom 3 or bottom 5 teams will all be in a lottery. Unlike the NBA, where I think even like the 13th or 14th team could technically move down like 7 or 8 spots. I think for baseball, it would only be those top 5. And I think they could only, I think like the team that finished with the worst record, I think the worst they could draft would be 3rd or 4th overall still.
Yeah, but that gets back to the point that I'm asking you, okay, that if indeed there is some kind of a lottery, albeit the one you're talking about, then you're not guaranteed the number 1 pick anyways.
No,
Lou.
but you're still guaranteeing a very, very good pick.
Well, no, I know, and I get that. So at least you have some sort of a lottery where, you're not guaranteed the number 1 pick instead of maybe 2, 3, 4, whatever, 5, whatever it may be.
Well, true justice in this situation would be the Reds getting the worst possible pick that they can get based on being the worst team in baseball.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad we set the record straight. All right, continue on, Lou.
I mean, Rick, I want to hear your thoughts. I mean, you can go into the salary cap or the salary minimum, that stuff we've talked about, but more so just your thoughts on like how bad this is for the game overall, and how also, while we still have this unbalanced schedule where it's so many divisional games, think about how unfair it is for teams in the NL West. I think they're all 500 or better. The NL East, 4 very competitive teams. We were talking about it earlier with the Marlins. The Brewers and Cardinals get to beat up on the Cubs and the Pirates, which is bad enough. But then to get to face the Reds 18 or 19 times, I mean, that's 15 or 16 wins, maybe more potentially, that no other teams don't get the advantage of. Then you have the entire American League. There's a few teams that are going to play the Reds this year. It's not fair, not only to fans who have to watch the Reds, but also teams that don't get to face the Reds compared to all the teams that do. It really ruins the competitive nature and the integrity of the game.
Well, I mean, this all goes up to the ownership and to the front office. This is whose fault it is. I mean, the president of the Reds, he shut up his big mouth when the fans were complaining about, why are you trading all our players away? Like, what are you doing? You want to be competitive. And he pretty much said, well, I can make more money if I just sold the team and move them somewhere, And, of course, the people got angry and say, well, screw you. We're not coming to the games. And their attendance stinks. And then later on, he came back and apologized because what he said was incredibly moronic and stupid. And so that kind of started the whole ball rolling for the Reds. And then it's just the one of the Reds players came out and said, I'm just worried about my stats. That's all I care about. And he got off to a horrible start. And I think, what are they, like 3-21 or something like that? Like one of the worst starts in baseball history. And the fans are not coming to the game. They're wearing paper bags over their heads. The Reds are losing millions of dollars.
At the very least, I will say we should give them credit. They're 6-4 in their past 10 games. It's actually the best 10-game stretch in their entire division, believe it or not. And they're now only 9. They're only 9-26 now.
Lou, I want to go back to what you said before, and I totally agree with you 100% that there should be a ceiling where they have to spend a certain minimum amount. I really believe you're 100% right there. They, whether it's 60, 70 million, whatever it is, just to at least spend. And I thought that was going to be negotiated in the collective bargaining agreement. And last week on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, we did address the National League West having all their teams above 500, including the Diamondbacks being in last place. So I'm glad you reiterated that as well. Go ahead. Excuse me.
Yeah, I actually believe the Diamondbacks and Rockies finally fell one game below 500 each. But still, Diamondbacks are 18-19, Rockies are 17-18. but those are last place teams. You look at the NL Central, the third place team only has 15 wins.
Well, you know what's amazing? When I saw the Marlins and the Diamondbacks play, and of course, Lou, I was at the Madison Bumgarner game where he went one inning and got thrown out. Of course, I knew he'd get over 6 in the following game. But when I saw the Diamondbacks play the Marlins, there were only 3 guys that I knew of on that team were Madison Bumgarner, Ian Kennedy, and Joe Mantiply. I didn't know anybody else on that.
You don't know Ketel Marte? Hell of a young player.
No, I didn't.
Very
And
player.
to the Diamondbacks' credit, at least they stayed with Torey Lovello and didn't get rid of him. So, no, I mean, you talk about how they've revamped that roster. They were, like 52 and 110 a year ago. And now all of a sudden they've certainly – they're playing a little bit better now than
they called
were.
Up a top prospect of theirs, and Alec Thomas as well. He's gotten off to a good start. So, I mean, at least they're calling guys up. The Pirates still keeping O'Neal Cruz in the minor leagues. Doesn't make any sense. But let's move things over to our final topic. And it's an interesting one because we've had a bunch of discussions already about extensions. We talked Aaron Judge and the Yankees. We've talked about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Blue Jays. This one might be the most interesting, though, because Judge having a hell of a season, by the way. If he bet on himself and he continues to stay healthy, he's going to get his 38 to 40 million that he wants, and the Yankees will have to give it to him. But this situation, Boston Red Sox, we've already seen it one time with them, with a superstar player, a former MVP, and Mookie Betts. Betts is coming to the end of his contract. They talked extension. Numbers were way off. The Red Sox weren't willing to pay it, and they inevitably traded Mookie Betts to the Dodgers. And I mean, the Dodgers are happy with it. Red Sox probably, I like Verdugo. He's a good player, but overall, Red Sox lost that deal. And the same situation might be slowly presenting itself here in Boston. And again, with Xander Bogaerts. And some people think the writing was on the wall when they went out and signed Trevor Story, because they signed Trevor Story for a 4 or 5 year deal, thinking, okay, he'll play second this year. And then when Bogaerts leaves, we'll slide Story over to short. They also took Marcelo Mayer, I believe his name is, with one of their top picks in the draft, and he is a shortstop as well. So they're going to have to pay Rafael Devers at some point, who's younger than Bogaerts, who's arguably more impactful player than Xander Bogaerts. So there's a lot of questions about whether or not the teams are going to be able to agree on a deal. Now, you're the Boston Red Sox. You're one of the biggest markets in baseball. You have all the money you need. Can you really afford to let Xander Bogaerts go, especially after what happened with Mookie Betts? And if you do, when do you do it? Do you do it in June? Do you do it right before the trade deadline? Right now you're playing horrible baseball. What are you going to get back for him? Because it's not like he has another year left. Like, I think Mookie did have another year. He got traded in the offseason and had that full year. What are you going to get for 2 months of Xander Bogaerts? They've really put themselves in a bad situation. So I guess there's a lot I just said. There's so many ways you can take it. But Scott, what do you think on this? Are the Red Sox crazy to let Bogaerts go? And if they do, can they really get what they need back for him?
Well, you said a mouthful. Number one, if you can get a good haul for him like you did, or anything close to it or equivalent to it with Mookie Betts, you make the move, because you talked about the proactivity with all these other guys that they brought in. So they obviously had to be thinking ahead in order to see the day that it was inevitable that he would go. So I'm a firm believer that if a guy's going to leave anyways, you want to get something for him instead of let him go away for nothing. Now,
it's also easier, Scott, when they're sitting 12 games out of first place already in May.
Right. So that was, you're leading off to my next point too, Lou, and that being this, okay, it depends on what record at what stage. If you feel like you can get a better haul in June and you know you're completely out of it, you do it. If you really feel that you can get back in it by July or when the actual trade, then you wait. So I think it's a TBD there, Lou, about where you think you are in the standings at that particular point. If you know you're way out of it, then cut your losses and move on. If you think you can hold out a little bit to get the better deal, I would let situation, Lou, dictate at all. They're not going to get anything like they did with Mookie Betts. That was a pretty good return. And bear in mind,
they did it in the offseason.
Right. Exactly. Now, I believe David Price was part of that deal too, wasn't he, for Mookie Betts? So
yeah, to unload more salary.
Right. So, Yeah, I'm a wait and see kind of guy on this one, Lou, about Bogarts. I mean, I'm always found it hard to believe that the Red Sox would let anybody go because they're not willing to pay him, because we all know they have the reputation to do it. But again, it just depends on where they are in the standings and go from there. So that's all I've got to say about that.
Rick, before I throw it over to you, another thing to consider here is he has said in Bogarts that he's open to doing talks in season, which is different from what we've had when we've discussed Vlad, when we've discussed Aaron Judge. And to me, it could be one of two things. Either A, he really does want to discuss an extension and get something done with the Red Sox, or he's saying, I'm open to discuss in season, because if there's teams that are willing to trade for him, perhaps he can work out an extension with that team prior to being traded. So a team is willing to trade for him if they can agree to an extension, which is something we've seen done before. It would also behoove the Red Sox to let that happen, because they're going to get more in a trade for Xander Bogaerts if a team knows they're getting Bogaerts long-term and not just for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Sox, I mean, I thought when they got Story, that was pretty much it. So I just thought, like, well, I guess Bogarts is gone. So to me, he's going to be gone. The Red Sox stink. We all know that they're bad. And if you can get a lot in return for them and the team is interested and you can get, like, some great prospects, and why not do it? I mean, you're not going anywhere. I know it's very early in the season, but, I mean, they look down. I don't see them doing anything. And with them
They don't
getting
have the
Story
pitching.
ready,
They don't have the pitching for
yeah.
it.
So
even if their offense wakes up, they just don't have the pitching to
Yeah.
compete in that division specifically.
it's a
Put them
tough
in another
division.
division, maybe, yeah.
And the Yankees are red hot. So
Chris Sale getting hurt didn't help. Chris Sale having setbacks didn't help. They're supposed to get James Paxton back in the summer. They signed him to kind of a low pro deal. He's had setbacks. Evaldi got blown up here tonight. Garrett Whitlock can only pitch every fifth day. He's the one good pitcher they do have. Their bullpen's a mess. And yeah, it's ugly in Boston right now. I have heard rumors of the St. Louis Cardinals making a big play for Xander Bogaerts. He would fit wonderfully there, in my opinion. Nolan Gorman has been a name that's been shopped around. He's had a great start to his minor league season, and they still have yet to call him up in the Cardinals. So that could be the type of return. He could go play second in Boston, and then Story could move over to shortstop. But I think even getting Gorman right now would be a really big get for the Red Sox, because if I'm a team, I'm just not forking over that much for a guy for 3 months unless I get that extension. I really think it could crush them the same way. Remember, the Orioles waited forever to trade Manny Machado. And it's the same type of situation right now. I don't even remember what they got from the Dodgers, but it really, really lacked in terms of how good Machado was compared to what they got back. And that's what the Red Sox are going to start to look at here if they can't agree to an extension with Bogaerts, and they wait and they wait and they wait.
No team is going to trade away all their draft picks to get a guy that's saying, okay, I'm going to go somewhere else. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense. They have to know that I'm going to stay here. I mean, the Red Sox just need to know, are you staying here? Do you want to go? Do you want to be here? Let's talk and sit right now. And if you're so open to having discussions during the offseason, let's get it done now. If not, we are moving on. But to me, the writing was on the wall when they got Story. So I think he's gone.
Yeah, the bottom line is,
this trade was horrific. The Dodgers traded Yusniel Diaz, Dean Kramer, Rylan Bannon, who I've never heard of, Zach Pop, who's no longer with the Orioles, Breivik Valera, who I don't even know is with the Orioles anymore, not doing anything. All that for Machado. The only guy who might at some point make an impact could be Yusniel Diaz, but even he's a very average player. Dean Kramer has not gotten it done. So that's what they ended up getting for a superstar player in Manny Machado. And that's what's going to happen if they hold on to Bogaerts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rick. It gets back to the fact of how much you want to pay for a rental. And by the way, Zach Pop, I believe, is with the Miami Marlins. So
it's a terrible trade.
Yeah, how much do you want to go ahead and pay for a rental, Lou? I mean, that's what it comes down to. You're going to give up a lot, or you're just going to get what you can get. That's really what it comes down to, right? L square, right?
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's actually insane that they got nothing for Machado, and it's really looking like that's exactly what's going to happen with Xander Bogaerts. I mean, you can make the argument Machado was already playing third base. Bogaerts plays that premium position at shortstop. Bogaerts is a multiple-time world champion. He brings that pedigree. So those would be solid arguments. And if you really want to add a guy like Bogaerts, it's worth paying one top prospect for him. But if you wait the longer you wait, the less you're going to get. And for me, if they were going to come to an agreement on an extension, it would have happened already. It would have happened at the beginning of the season. It would have happened in the offseason. He doesn't seem inclined to be there. And if he does, he clearly doesn't like what the Red Sox are willing to offer.
Let me make one reference about the St. Louis Cardinals. I remember a long time ago when Mark McGwire was traded by Oakland to St. Louis, and he ended up signing an extension because he loved baseball. St. Louis is a baseball town. People can fall in love with St. Louis as a baseball town. So you know what? This is where I want to camp out, and they'll sign their extension. And I'm sure Lou and Rick, you guys have seen that from time and time again. You can lock a guy in if he loves playing there. And St. Louis is one of the best baseball towns in the
best fans in baseball. I've been saying that. I mean, I remember when Tino Martinez was with the Cardinals and he was hitting like 220 something. He got a standing ovation. They love their players. They support their players. Look at Pujols coming back. I mean, they're not angry that he left. They're happy that he's back. They're the most passionate fans are in St. Louis. Great fans, great history, great tradition. I love the Cardinals. If I was Bogaerts or a player, I would love to play for the Cardinals. They're always competitive. They have a pedigree of winning, best fans, great stadium, great city.
It's funny how you mentioned that, Lou. I wonder if this would be an adequate comparison if you really compare organizations. I would almost think that the St. Louis Cardinals in Major League Baseball would be comparable to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the National Football League. Now, why do I bring that up? Okay, they're stable. Everybody loves to be there. They're always winning, and they have great fan bases. To me, I think that's the best comparison. The Cardinals and MLB to the Pittsburgh Steelers and NFL.
Certainly in the last 20-something years. For sure.
Think about the Steelers.
The Stars.
Stan
Musial, Roger Scorsese.
Yeah, right. But think about Steelers for a moment, guys, okay? 3 head coaches in a long, long time. Noel, Bill Cowher, Mike Tom. Jeez, that's pretty good.
Yeah. For the Steelers, sure. The Cardinals have gone through quite a few since La Russa left. But in terms of consistently winning and people loving to be there, I mean, look at Wainwright and Molina. The guys have been there together forever. How often do you see that? It's rare for one guy to be with one franchise forever, let alone 2 guys, battery mates at that. I mean, in the last 30 years, how many players stayed with one team? I mean, even look at superstars like Griffey went other places.
Right.
Jim Thome went other places. For instance, if you want to look at him, Manny Ramirez went to a ton of places. I mean, Ortiz eventually stayed in Boston, but he didn't start in Boston. Bryce Harper bounced out of Washington. Soto's probably going to bounce out of Washington. Trout, at least, is locked up long term. But if the Angels don't win in the next 5 years, he might want out too.
Well, but you know what, though, Lou? My mentor, Ernie Harwell, not a bad mentor to have, by the way, okay, would always tell me that it's not that a lot of great players land someplace else. Ernie always used to tell me Ty Cobb was one of his favorite examples, with the Tigers, and he ended up playing someplace else. So,
Philadelphia Athletics.
Yeah, right. It's a different era altogether, but I'm with you all the way, Lou. Lots of guys don't stay in one place anymore. The Cal Ripkens, the Alan Trammell's, the Whitakers, those are far and few between nowadays because everybody's picking up and going. But, outside of the managerial comparison, the Cardinals and the Steelers, obviously I think they're eerily the same. So.
I'm with you there, Scott. I'll turn it back over to you and wrap this baby up.
All right, Lou, Rick, great job by both of you. Well, once again, folks, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Blandmouth. Please be joined by Rick Curti and Mr. Opinion, of course, Lou Landers. What can I tell you? I mean, Lou, you're the ideal co-host. Of course, so are you, Rick. I consider you guys my dream team, and that's just how it is. So, but meanwhile, we're talking tonight, mainly running up the score. That's an Xander Bogaerts conversation. And, of course, Hunter Green and the insane no-hitter situation, which I believe an asterisk should be on every combined one anyways, whatever. Not reiterating there. Great show tonight. And, of course, the Miami Marlins as well. I always like to get a little bit of information about the team that I certainly have a vested interest in locally. So with that said, Rick, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can contact me on my website, www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there to bring MLB to Charlotte, so go on there and sign it. We're also on there on Charlotte MLB. We're also on there at Charlotte Bats Baseball on Facebook. We're also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. I'm on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball. And I'm also on Instagram on Rick Curti. And if you have any comments or questions, email me at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
And Rick does a phenomenal job helping us on social media as well. I want to get that out there. Okay, Lou, go ahead.
Find me on Twitter at Landers Talks. Find me on Facebook, Lou Landers. You can hear me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel, 9:30 a.m. every Sunday. Sports Byline USA and the Armed Forces Network on Fridays. And come check out all my baseball content at drroto.com, where I am the director of baseball content.
And I will add to the fact that Rick Curti, Lou Landers, my primary co-host, 108 Stitches Baseball Talks, stick it on your resume or LinkedIn pages, wherever. You guys are definitely my two co-hosts as well, and I'm proud to have you. As for us, last but not least, us. Okay, Scott Morganroth, CEO, founder of South Florida Tribune. You can reach us at www.southfloridatribune.com. That's our website, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Gets it done. Twitter @Tribune South. You can follow us there. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We have a lot of outstanding shows on our network. This is just one of the many that we have out there. And I have to give a shout out to Candy Ebling, who does a phenomenal job with the website as well as getting these shows up there. Without Candy Ebling's behind the scenes work, it makes our life a whole lot more difficult. So I will reiterate at Tribune South. And also, you can hear the audio version on iHeartRadio as well. So if you can't watch it, tune in on iHeart. So lots of different ways to get the shows. And please share this with your friends and family as well. We work very diligently to make sure you have information and insights. And we hope that you enjoy the effort that we want to put in to make sure that you're entertained and informed. But I'm proud of the team that I have, not only 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, but across the network as well on all the platforms that we have the shows, because everybody puts forth a very good effort and does what they can, whether it's football and whatnot. And I'm very proud to be associated with a bunch of classy individuals. I'm only as good as my teammates, and I am so proud, and I don't mind bragging about my teammates. I got two of the best here tonight. So with that said, on behalf of Lou Landers and Rick Curti, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, and we look forward to bringing you another fresh edition next week. So take care, everybody. Have a great week, and we will catch you the next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.